Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please join us for the invocation prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiryet Shravatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shamana Kirtanaha Hridayantasto Bhadrani Vidhunoti Suhasatam Nashta Prayeshwa Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatir Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavti Nashtiki. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So this is Kartik Mass, like Devi mentioned earlier. And today is the third day in this Mass. So again, we started with Sharad Purnima on Monday. And today happens to be also Daughter's Day. So again, all those who are daughters, happy Daughter's Day to you. And all those who have daughters, happy Daughter's Day them too as well. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, actually I told you about this today and I verified it later. It seems 25th September was National Daughters Day.
Oh,
And then in certain other countries, it's celebrated on another day. And I was looking somewhere on the internet and, it seems they were just carrying on with that thread. So actually, I provided you wrong information.
no worries. We should always celebrate our sons and daughters. So again, there's nothing wrong with that, Devi. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. So please join us in the recitation of this verse. Let me share my screen. Hare Krishna. So today we are covering this 12th verse from chapter 12 of Canto 5. And this is conversation between Jar Bharat and Rahuguna. Of course, this is Kartik Mass, still Kartik Mass. That information is still true. And today is the third day of Kartik Mass. And who is the most dear devotee of the Lord? So today's verse is looking at that, how can we get the maximum mercy of the Lord? Because Lord Krishna, Krishna's mercy flows through his devotees. And those of you who think, who's the best devotee of the Lord, you can write it in the chat. Who is the best devotee of the Lord? Let's see, what kind of responses do we have? Well, maybe later we can cover something on those.
But actually, the chat is disabled. That's why. Yeah, but they can unmute and speak up if they have to. But you can go ahead.
So yes, many times people think, Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu. Yes, Lord Shiva is the greatest Vaishnava. Yet Radharani is even greater. Because for her pleasure, there was Ras Leela, right? So again, she is the Haladini Shakti. She is the pleasure-giving potency of Lord Krishna. So she gives pleasure to Lord Krishna's heart. And we should seek mercy of Radharani. And to seek that mercy, we have to make sure that we do two things. Of course, we have to continue to make our endeavor to please her, yet at the same time, depend on her mercy, right? So that we have to completely depend. And this is Damodar Mass. That's what this Damodar Leela talks about. That 2-finger short rope is because Mother Yashoda wanted to bind Krishna, but it was always coming out 2-finger short. So we'll be discussing some of those aspects as well as how we can get Radharani's mercy, because this verse is directly related to that topic. Hare Krishna. My dear devotees, please join us in the recitation of this verse. Raghune tat tapasa nayati nate jaya nirpanad grahadva na chandasa neva jalagni surya hai vina mahatpadarajo abhishekam. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. My dear King Rahuguna, unless one has the opportunity to smear his entire body with the dust of lotus feet of great devotees, One cannot realize the absolute truth. One cannot realize the absolute truth simply by observing celibacy, brahmacharya, strictly following the rules and regulations of household life, leaving home as vanaprastha, accepting sannyas, or undergoing severe penances in winter by keeping oneself submerged in water or surrounding oneself in summer by fire and the scorching heat of the sun. There are many other processes to understand the absolute truth, but the absolute truth is only revealed to one who has attained the mercy of a great devotee. Hare Krishna. Devi, could you please read the purport?
Hare Krishna. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Actual knowledge of transcendental bliss can be bestowed upon anyone by a pure devotee. Vedeshu durlabham adurlabham atma bhakta. One cannot attain the perfection of spiritual life simply by following the directions of the Vedas. One has to approach a pure devotee. Anya bilashita shunyam jnana karmadi anavritam. By the grace of such a devotee, one can understand the absolute truth, Krishna, and one's relationship with him. A materialistic person sometimes thinks that simply by executing pious activities and remaining at home, one can understand the absolute truth. That is denied in this verse. Nor can one understand the absolute truth simply by observing the rules and regulations of brahmacharya, celibacy. One has to serve the pure devotees. That will help one understand the absolute truth without fail. So, Prabhuji, later on, like after you complete the prayers, when you are explaining the verse, can you please make sure, like I think many here do not understand when we are talking about Krishna and Radharani, why absolute truth is mentioned here. Why do we have to know what is absolute truth? Many don't understand what absolute truth means. Okay.
Thank you, Devi.
All right.
Hare Krishna, please join us for Guru Pranati and get mercy of Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas in Parampara. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripa Tadaham Vande Shri Gurum Dina Taranam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So, here we are saying, we are reading that Srila Prabhupada in the translation is saying, one cannot realize the absolute truth. So, absolute truth is actually realized in three forms. And the verse appears in the first canto. Vadanti tattvatvidas tattum yajnanam avyayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagwan iti shabdyate. So the learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth realize the absolute truth in three forms. Brahman, the eternal effulgence of the Lord. Then Paramatma. So eternal effulgence, Satvija, and then Chit. So full of knowledge and Sat. Paramatma, the super soul in the heart. And Anand, so Lord Krishna, who is a person, Bhagwan. Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagwan. Bhagwan is Lord Krishna. Sometimes people have so-called Bhagwans, but these are demigods in this material world. We just had Navdurga celebrations, and we were all worshipping Goddess Durga because she is a Vaishnavi. So again, that's why we call her Vaishnav Devi. It means a she devotee of Lord Vishnu or Krishna. Sometimes people, they don't realize it, and then they think that she is different. Well, Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita clearly states, Devi he shagurumai mama maya duratyaya mame viye prapadyante maya metam tarantite. This material energy of mine. So who is he talking about? She is talking about Goddess Durga, who is the superintendent of this Durg called material world. And saying it's very difficult to cross over her, to pass her test. But those who surrender unto me can easily cross over to the, across this material world and go back home, back to Godhead. So here we have to realize that the only form of Satchidanand, the complete form, is Lord Krishna. Other two forms, they have features, but they are incomplete. Yet they are absolute truth, but with limited exposure, because the Brahman effulgence is just the glow coming out from the toes of Lord Krishna. And when it comes to Paramatma, he's an expansion of a plenary expansion, portion of the plenary expansion. So we have Chaturvya expansions and then second Chaturvya expansion. That's where you further come down to Shirodakshaya Vishnu in this material world. And that Shirodakshaya Vishnu is the Paramatma in our hearts. So those who worship Shirodakshaya Vishnu, they can't even cross over. They can easily cross from one planet to another within this material world, but they cannot cross over to the spiritual world. While those who are meditating on Brahman, the Brahmanvadi, or in this particular case, the impersonalist, then they can cross over, but they merge into the eternal effulgence of the Lord, the Brahman effulgence, and so they cannot engage in any activity. So how do you think they can smear the dust of the lotus feet of the devotee on their body? How can they get the mercy of the Lord? Because mercy of the Lord requires that we serve her and we seek her mercy, and that we engage in service of the Lord. So to be able to get proper mercy, to be able to understand the absolute truth, who is completely full in all aspects, we have to attain the mercy of a great devotee. And one should smear on his entire body. So that's also very important. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So today we'll be looking at this from the acronym mercy, but I do want to cover in purpose. Srila Prabhupada talks about Vedeshu Durlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakto. So, following the Vedas, it is very difficult to approach Krishna. And who's saying this? Lord Brahma, who received the gift of Vedas directly from Lord Krishna. He's saying following Vedas is very difficult. Durlabham. But Sudurlabham. But very easy it is. So it's easy. Again, very easy, not at all difficult. Atma Bhakto, one who is fully surrendered unto the Supreme Lord. That person can easily attain Lord Krishna. So we want to attain Lord Krishna, and we can decide what path do we want to take. And Srila Prabhupada used to give the example that sometimes people, they want to get to the top floor to meet the CEO. Well, they are taking the stairs. They are saying, yes, we will make all this endeavor and take the stairs. And there will be so many distractions and so much energy is wasted. While this devotional service is, by the mercy of a devotee, we get into the elevator and press the top floor button and we can directly reach there. So yes, devotional service is very easy for easy-minded person, very difficult for convoluted or complex-minded person. Now, another aspect that Srila Prabhupada is revealing in this purport is Anya Bhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadhyanabritam. Now we complete this verse by saying Anya Bhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadhyanabritam Anukulena Krishna Anushilanam Bhaktiruttama. So Anya Bhilashita is not Anya Bhilasha, as we have covered in the past as well. Anya Bhilasha means having no desire. But we have desire to serve Krishna. We have desire to get mercy of Radharani. So, and every time trouble comes our way, then we want to surrender completely and completely depend on Krishna, just like Brajvasis. When Indra started pouring this rain from the Samvartika clouds, they were the size of pillar. Each drop was, the raindrop was the size of pillars. And it was, to destroy the whole of Vrindavan, the whole Vrajadham. Yet at the same time, it's very easily overcome when Lord Krishna takes on the job of, takes on Govardhan Parvat and lifts it. So whenever, the 6 limbs of Sharanagati, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he reveals that. So we understand Anukulena Krishna, Anushilanam. So that Anukul is also Anukulyasya Sankalpa Pratikulyasya Vajana Rakshishati Vishwaso Gopatitve Vayanam Tatha Atmanikshepa Karpani Sadvidha Sharanagati. So we call this a cool mantra. Because it's so cool. We've talked about Anyabhilashita Shunyam and it's Anukulena. What does Anukulena? It's one of the limb of surrender. Anukulyasya Sankalpa. So any endeavor that we do, if it is Anukul, it is favorable to devotional service, we must do it. And if it is Pratikul, it is not favorable to devotional service or progress in devotional life, in pleasing Radha Krishna, then we should not do that. We should not waste our energy in that. Anukulyasya Sankalpa Pratikulyasya Vajan Rakshishyati Vishwaso. Have firm faith that Lord Krishna will provide us protection. He will be the guardian. Gopatitre Varnantata, he will maintain us. So anytime there is question of maintaining us, protecting us, we see from the example of Vrajvasis, they immediately sought shelter of Lord Krishna, and Lord Krishna immediately provided them the shelter. Gopatitve Karpanya Shadvidha Shayanagati. So again, and Karpanya refers to that have a humble mood, right? Be humble, not be proud, like Indra was when he was sending some Vartika clouds. But rather, when we are seeking shelter, of course, we go ahead and seek for mercy. We cannot demand it because it is not a right, it is a privilege. Devotional service is a privilege, my dear devotees, and by the mercy of great devotees, we get this privilege. And Atmanikshepa Karpanya, Shadvidha Sharanagati, and surrendering everything. And we see the example of Daityaraj Bali Maharaj, who surrendered everything, including himself, at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna and became the Lord of Sutala, which is more opulent than Swarglok, where Indra is residing. So we see that. And of course, he also gets, there's a duration where he gets to rule as Indra. That's because of the mercy of the Lord. So it's very interesting when people look at this example. Oh, wow. He got to be the greatest devotee of the Lord by being a grandson of Prahlad Maharaj and surrendering everything, even rejecting his spiritual master. He rejected his spiritual master Shukracharya because he saw that Shukracharya's instructions were pretty cool to devotional service. So we have to understand this verse with the right perspective. Sometimes people become very emotional. And we understand, the perspective from Siddhanta, then all the aspects become very clear to us and it makes us dive deeper. And as I normally do, I try to refer to some Srila Prabhupada's pastimes, some of the activities and how he was preaching by his own example. And we see that Srila Prabhupada was many times approached by various people at different times. And as he was approached by a different kind of people, they were looking for his mercy from different aspects. So today we'll be looking at this particular verse with the acronym MERCY, M-E-R-C-Y. Now what does M stand for? Mercy of the Mahatma, mercy of the great soul. Right? The spiritual life begins when we receive blessings from saintly devotees. Then E is ego must go. And this ego is very sneaky in nature, my dear devotees. Sometimes you receive the blessing and then the ego comes in. Because everyone is saying, oh, you received such a wonderful mercy, you received such a wonderful mercy. And Lord Krishna at that time does not like his devotees to become proud. So in Govardhan Leela, we know there was one devotee he saved the most. And who was that? Indra himself. So ego must go. Because realization is blocked by pride. Humility opens the door to grace. We have to understand that E aspects. We should always stay humble. And when we are getting the mercy, then we have to be ready. We have to receive the dust, right? R is to receiving the dust, which is association of the devotees and service. So the dust means genuine association and following devotees' example. And that's where Anya Bhilashita Shunyam becomes very important. Anya Bhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadhyanavrat, not being overcome by the monastic knowledge or the karma cycle. And Chaturvarnas, the 4 Varnas, are based on the karma cycle that they perform various activities in various states. Anukulena Krishna Anushilanam. Now, this word Anushilanam in this verse is very important because it reveals that we have to follow in the footsteps of great acharyas. Now, following the footsteps can be done 2 ways. How do you follow someone? Well, you could do anukaran. Anukaran is imitate them. They speak like this, we speak like that. Well, that's not very much appreciated because we have to understand the context as how they are speaking, the way they are speaking. And that's why we have to take anusharan. We have to take shelter of their instructions and carry out their instructions. That is the important aspect. So here, when we carry out the instructions, then we understand things with proper perspective. In this regard, Srila Prabhupada covers a very nice story. There was a veterinarian doctor and animals doctor, basically. And once he had an assistant, a compounder, to help him. And he went to a village where he was asked to come. And there was a horse who was having a trouble. His throat was swollen. So he looked at the swollen throat and he's like, let me fix this. He took out a mallet, gave 3 bangs on the throat, and the horse that was lying on the ground suddenly got up and was very happy, like no more pain. Now the compounder, the assistant, say, I can also do this, right? This is very easy. So he gave up the service. He went on his own. Sometimes we see that. Sometimes devotees think, oh, I can do all this stuff on my own, and they don't understand the whole perspective and they go on doing their own stuff. So this compounder did exactly that. I don't need a master. I don't need to serve him. And so he goes on, but then he's causing havoc. So the veterinarian comes to know that this assistant of his is killing animals left and right. So one day he apprehends his assistant. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, what? I'm doing exactly what you were doing. Like, what do you think I'm doing? So he said, I saw you take up the mallet and bang on the throat of this horse and 3 times. And right then and there, he was cured. I'm taking the mallet and hitting all these animals. It's not my fault that these animals are dying. The veterinarian said, you fool, that horse had watermelon stuck in his throat. So I had to break that watermelon by softly hitting the mallet on his throat so that it can go down and the horse can be released from the pain. Okay. So now again, in this case, we see that the compounder, the assistant, was just following what he was doing, anukarana, but he has not taken shelter, understood why it is doing. That's why, my dear devotees, when we seek in our life, we have to understand and judge others. First, judge ourselves. Why am I doing what am I doing? Because the responsibility of all our actions lie with us. And then when others are helping us in devotional service, then we should be very grateful. Sometimes we get, instructions harsh, but they are for our improvement because we are lazy at times. We are, ignorant at times. Well, ignorance sometimes is used as an excuse because just a child who's ignorant puts his hand in the fire and expecting it won't burn. Well, the fire burns. That's the nature of fire. So even though the child is ignorant, will end up burning its hand. So we have to be very careful when we use excuses like, oh, I'm ignorant, or what can I do? Srila Prabhupada had a very famous verse. He would say, what is the difficulty? If we have to surrender to the Lord, if we have to engage in his devotional service, what is the difficulty? It's all Maya, which is our desire to lord over Maya. It's not Maya. It's our desire to lord over Maya, because Lord lords over Maya. We are part of his, part and parcel of Lord Krishna. So we think that we can also lord over, but you know what? She is there to test us. And sometimes when we want to lord over Maya, all we have to do is take shelter of the Lord. And to take shelter of the Lord, to get mercy of the Lord, we have to take shelter of a devotee. And so we have to receive the dust. Receiving the dust is very important. And then this receiving the dust means cleansing of the heart, the internal abhishek that we have to do. The real dust is humility and love that purify our inner consciousness. So we have to purify ourselves and remove all those dust that is accumulated of many, many birds, millions of birds of having material desires. That's what the dust is. But this is our endeavor. But we still have to yearn for the grace. So why is for yearning for the grace? Because when one longs sincerely for mercy, Krishna reveals himself to such a devotee. So once Srila Prabhupada, he was in Matchless Gift store sitting, and some Indians, they opened the door and it's like, Swamiji, please bless us. So Srila Prabhupada pointed to his disciples who were shaven head and wearing saffron clothes. They're like, this is my mercy. And they immediately stepped back. Well, that was a wonderful opportunity to get the mercy. He was just identifying that these are chanting the holy name. They were doing the chanting together. That was the time. But the thought that these visitors took was, oh, we have to give up our home and become like them. No, if you pay attention to the Mahajanas, many of the Mahajanas are actually merit personalities, starting with Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Swambhu Nado Shambhu Kumaro Kapilo Manu Prahlado Janako Bhishmo Bali Vaisa Ya Sakir Vayam. First two personalities, Swambhu and Narada Shambhu. And Shambhu and Lord Brahma, they themselves are married, right? They're grihasthas. So it is not what is expressed in this verse that Jarbharat is revealing to King Raghugana. So let's look at some of the background. Sometimes people say, who is this Jarbharat? And who is this King Raghugana? How is this conversation starting? So we had already heard in the previous week how Lord Rishabdev, who is an incarnation of Krishna, is teaching his 100 sons. And the eldest one is Bharat Maharaj. And that important verse was the 18th verse of 5th chapter of Canto 5. Guru nasasya swajano nasasyat pita nasasya janani nasasyat devam natatsyan napatischa sasyan namochayedya samupreta mrityum. Lord Rishabdev, he revealed that one who cannot deliver his dependence from the path of repeated birth and death should never become a spiritual master, a father, a husband, a mother, or a worshipable demigod. And Swajana is also relative. So that is also included here. And Lord Rishabdev, he actually told his other 99 sons that your eldest brother is a great devotee of the Lord. And this Bharat Maharaj, after Lord Rishabdev left the kingdom, became the emperor of the world. And when came the right time, he gave up the whole kingdom to the rightful heir and he went to the forest. And as he was practicing there, he saw, because of a lion, a she-deer who was pregnant, jumped across the river to save herself from death. But what happened? Her baby from her womb got discharged and fell in the river. And when she reached the other end, she also died. So Bharat Maharaj, being a compassionate soul like the devotees are, immediately jumped and saved the baby. Sometimes, when you have taken shelter of... So he was performing his devotional service very nicely. But Maya sometimes hits you afterwards. And this is what happened. So he was always careful. He said, I have to provide protection. This is my compassion. I should provide protection. So much so that he was constantly thinking about the deer. When he was supposed to be thinking about Lord Krishna and Shishi Radha Krishna, he was thinking, where's the deer? Where's the baby deer? Is it getting trouble? And sometimes, the baby deer would come and starts to eat kusha grass from the bush base. And he said, no, don't do that. Don't do that. He was constantly looking for the baby deer, so much so that he became attached to the baby deer. And one day the baby deer was not found. So he went looking and he slipped from a cliff, ending up falling on the ground. And in his last moments, the baby deer came and just sat next to him. And Bharat Maharaj, even though he knew the principles of religion, even though he knew what devotional service means, he was meditating on this deer because of the attachment that developed. And so he ended up getting body of a deer. But by Lord's mercy, Radha Krishna, they're very merciful. They made sure that his devotional service should not go waste. So he remembered his past life, that he was the emperor of the world. And he was performing his devotional service in the forest perfectly. But after he got attached to the deer, he ended up getting the body of a deer. Antekale cha mameva swaranmuktamare kalevara. So Lord Krishna says, when at the last moment one thinks of me, then they attain me. But there is also, yummy mantra, we call it. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tajante ante kalevram tam tam meveti kanteya sada tad bhavo bhavita. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. Whatever one is thinking at the last moment, right? Yam yam vapi smaran tajante ante kalevram. At the last moment of life, when we eat so much yummy stuff, then we have to take helps of antacids, right? Tums, right? Tam tam me veti kanteya sada tad bhavita. So at that time, the mind carries the soul to that destinations. Because he was thinking of a deer, and that deer he got attached to, he received the body of a deer. So he understood it perfectly. And so he would go to the ashram. Now, sometimes people say, oh, wow, he was such a wonderful soul that he went to the ashram. Or maybe he was carried to the ashram. Whatever the reason is, he is hearing Krsna Katha day and night. And after he leaves that body of a deer, he again gets birth in a Brahman family. And 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it is revealed, Lord Krishna reveals to Arjuna that one who is very advanced get birth in the family of a transcendentalist. And the Brahmana wanted his youngest son to understand Vedas. But Bharat Maharaj understood that is distraction. I have to engage in devotional service. So he acted dull. Sometimes people go to toilet and then afterwards they wash their hands. He would wash his hands before and then go to toilet. So making everyone feel that he's dull-headed. So when his father left, his brothers usurped the share that would belong to Bharat Maharaj. So he's referred to as Jad Bharat. Jad is saying dull in this way, reflecting on, how he's behaving. Sometimes people get names like that, but that doesn't mean we should consider them that way. Sometimes people have such names. Well, in this case, Srila Prabhupada gave the example of Nagnagati Panchu. Now, Nagnagati Panchu was a small boy in the village. He was running around naked when he was a baby and as a toddler. So everyone said, his name is Panchu. He's always running, that's Gati, and he's running naked, Nagna. So his name is Nagnagati Panchu. But when he went to school, Gurukul, then he was very brilliant. Everyone was appreciating him. But his name was nicknamed as Nagnagati Panchu. He became so intelligent that he topped in his class and he went to this town and he became a magistrate, a district magistrate. So when he was coming back to visit his town, the village he would belong to, the elders would sometimes, sit under the tree, talking about, how the affairs of the world are going on. And they said, oh, Nagdigati Panchu, he was just running around naked. He's not a very important person. Even though he has qualified himself as a magistrate, he was not accounted for that. Rather, he was referred to his memory as what he had done. So sometimes we see great personality like Bharat Maharaj is sometimes referred to as the deer's body. Sometimes people say, no, these are lessons we should take in our life, not to get attached to anything but Radha Krishna and devotees of the Lord, so that we get their mercy. So the teachings of Srila Prabhupada, who has provided us such wonderful literature as Srimadbhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and so many wonderful books. And so, Jada Bharat, he was acting dull intentionally. He was actually a transcendentalist. He was a pure devotee of the Lord. And it so happened, how is this proven? Sometimes people say that. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, it's revealed that once there were, some dacoits kind of people. They were looking to offer a man sacrifice to goddess Durga. So the person they had caught had run away. So they saw Jada Bharat, they caught him, they dressed him nicely, fed him nicely, and Jada Bharat knew that they want to sacrifice me. He's like, whatever is the destination, I will just depend on Krishna. Well, when he was brought in front of goddess Durga and they were about to chop his head, what happens? The statue of goddess Durga splits into, she comes out with all her associates. And these associates, they immediately destroy all these people. How could they be sacrificing a pure devotee of the Lord? Jada Bharat was still acting like a dull person, but he was very stout because all his life, his brothers made him do a lot of hard work and he had to work very hard to sustain himself. Yet at the same time, his meditation was, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He's fully focused on meditating on Shri Radha Krishna. So once a general Senapati, from King Rahura, who was going to see a great saintly soul, somewhere giving pravachans, somewhere giving class on, the great subject matter like Srimadbhagavatam, about the absolute truth and so forth. As he was headed over there, one of the person that was carrying his palanquin. So the 4 people, they carry palanquin, which has like 2 rods, and then the palanquin is sitting on it. So one person had fallen sick. They said, we need someone who's stout. They said, oh, this chestnut looks pretty stout. Let's get him. So they said, your king needs your service. Come and do the service. And he said, okay, whatever Lord desires, he agreed to do the service. But he is a pure devotee of the Lord. He is very compassionate to all other living entities. He would see that there are some ants on the ground. He doesn't want to step on the ants. Devotees are very careful because we have to be compassionate. So he would jump over to spots where there are no ants. Now, he was doing his parts. That doesn't mean he has to tell everyone else, hey, you also do this. So others were just doing it. Sometimes they were stepping on ants, but Jarabharat was not worried about them. He was worried about himself. Why? Because charity begins at home. Now, sometimes this personality, Jarabharat, is the most misunderstood personality, just like we see Vibhishan is also most misunderstood personality, or Bharat Maharaj is misunderstood. And of all the personalities, Bhishma Pitama, who's one of the Mahajanas, is also most misunderstood personality. Well, on the other hand, we see Karna. He's misunderstood from the other aspect. He is Dambodhava Rakshas, along with Vivaswan, Sansha. That's what it is. And his final birth is to get annihilated by Narayan Ishu appeared and Krishna and Arjun. Well, long story short, being misunderstood, the king is now getting disturbed. He is, feeling that his palanquin is getting jerks all around. He's saying, oh, you are not very strong person. He sees that Jarabharat is a very strong person, but he is actually criticizing. This is sarcastically, without knowing about the person. He is saying, maybe you need some beating. Sometimes, some dead animal needs to be beaten, or some pot that are covered, they need to be put water on. So at that time, Jarabharat said, first of all, you have engaged me in the service without my desire and for no remuneration, thinking yourself to be the king. And you're thinking that beating a dead animal will wake the animal up. No, it will not wake the animal up. And if you pour water on a covered vessel or the vessel put upside down, there will not be any water in it. Now, this was hint enough to King Rahuguna that this person he was thinking as his servant, engaged in his service, was actually a great saintly person. And when he hears that one has to take dust from the pure devotees' lotus feet. This particular verse, Vinamahata Padarajo Abhishekam. So, without taking the dust from the lotus feet of a great devotee and smear it all over the body, one cannot get to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to understand the absolute truth. So who we want to understand? We don't want to understand Brahman. We don't want to understand Brahman. We want to understand the cause of all causes, Lord Krishna. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Nadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. Ishvara Parama Krishna. So Lord Krishna is the Ishvara, the supreme enjoyer, the supreme personality, supreme personality of Godhead, Sachidananda Vigraha. And he is full of eternity, bliss, and knowledge and bliss. And Anadir Adir Govinda. There is no one older than him, Anadir. Adir he's the oldest person. Govinda, the one who gives pleasure to the senses, the one who gives pleasure to the cows, and one who gives pleasure to the Mother Earth also. That's also Govinda, the 3 meanings of Govinda. So here we are seeing that this conversation is happening between Jarabharat and Rahuguna. And Rahuguna hears this and immediately falls flat at the lotus feet of Jad Bharat. So we have to understand that this particular topic is all about getting mercy of a pure devotee of the Lord. And when we get the mercy of the pure devotee of the Lord, maybe the devotee is not there, but we have to take instructions. Just like Srila Prabhupada, when he pointed to the devotees who were chanting around, those visitors, they thought, oh, we have to give up home. No, that's the wrong interpretation. Similarly, we see current times. Now I'm coming back to mercy. We have to look at this mercy aspect from different angles. Mercy of the Mahatma. Srila Prabhupada did not look at the age of his disciples or age of the devotee. He saw their determination, he saw their enthusiasm, and he would assign them different tasks to challenge them to get to that next level. We hear the example of Mukund Maharaj, who was Michael Grant at that time. And he said, why don't you try and open a temple if you're going to San Francisco? And first, Mukund Maharaj was surprised. That's a big ask. But then he didn't realize that he just got empowered by by Srila Prabhupada. And when he went, being empowered and with the help of, His Grace Gurudas and Janwa Mataji and Janki Mataji, they were able to start a whole center, and it grew very nicely. So much so that the couples, when 3 couples went to England, and further increased the popularity. So Srila Prabhupada would just ignite the spark and then let it blaze by the enthusiasm and determination and all the energy the youth has. Now, why don't we see the same progress in today's times, right? Because there are various things, this aspect is twisted. Sometimes people are forgetting that this verse is really talking about that one cannot understand or get the mercy of this absolute truth, Lord Krishna, by following even Varnashram Dharma. Yet at the same time, when someone joins the society, the goal becomes that they should become a Brahmana, because Brahmana gets to do devotional service. They can get to be on the altar and get all the opulence and get the Mahaprasad. Well, Mahaprasad will automatically come to you if you become a Vaishnava. Vaishnava is automatically a Brahmana. That is also, rather, Vaishnava is greater than Brahmana, because Vaishnava is a transcendentalist. Brahmana is still one of the modes of material nature. So mode of goodness is influencing Brahmana, or material mode. Then we have mode of passion, Kshatriya, administrators. They are also in the mode of material nature. And then comes Vaishyas, the mercantile people who take care of the cows, the trade, and the finances, banks, and so forth. They are in a mixed mode of passion and ignorance, and the Shudras who do service to others. They are in the mode of ignorance. So these are material modes. Rather, we should be looking at becoming transcendentalists. That's what Srila Prabhupada was focusing on. In current times, when someone joins and they want to take initiation, the focus becomes, how do you become a Brahmana? Because you get all the opulences. No, we should be rather looking at becoming a devotee of the Lord. Now, I'll give you some wonderful examples that appear in various epics. Let's look at Ramayana. Hanuman was always eager to serve Lord Ramchandra. He was like, as soon as Lord Ramchandra would ask any of him, he would just do it. He would do his best. Now, many times he would do things which would become laughable, but at the same time, that's because he's so focused on the Supreme Lord, he would not care about it. Once he saw Sita Mata, and she was putting sindoor, kumkuma in her the split hair area, and he said, why are you putting that? She's like, this will attract Lord Ram. This will make me dear to Lord Ram. Hanuman hears this. Putting little kumkum will make you dear to Lord Ram. What does he do? He goes out and smears it all over his body. That's Hanuman. He wants to become more dear to Lord Ram, but not just like that. He wants to do it by his service, his actions. Yat karoshi yadashnasi, yad joshi dadasi, yat tapasyasi kanteya tat kurushva madarpadam. One of the instructions that Arjuna receives, 927, I believe, 1926, that is that whatever activities we do, whatever we give up in sacrifice, charity, or austerity should be done as an offering to the Lord. So this is where we get mercy of Krishna, of Radha Krishna. So we have to seek mercy of Srimati Radharani. And mercy of Srimati Radharani, flows through when we follow the instructions of great devotees of the Lord like Srila Prabhupada. And another aspect where people become very emotional, because Jal Bharat, we have to understand, he was not correcting others that you should not step on the ants. He was carrying out his duties. First, charity begins at home, so we have to carry out. And if someone is giving us good instruction, we should take those instructions, irrespective of the position, because now the king Rahuguna, he's a great king of the land where one of the citizens happens to be Jal Bharat. Would the citizen not obey the king? The citizen will not obey the king if the king is, not right. He's not helping in progression of spiritual life. Yet at the same time, many times people are asked to do various activities by the administrators and they just do it because the administrator is asking, without realizing that if it does not invoke my attractiveness towards Lord Krishna, then it is Shrameva Hi Kevalam. So we have to take progressive steps toward Lord Krishna, towards Radharani. For that, we have to take instructions of Acharyas. There are other things that sometimes go on. So I'll give you first example of Kodak company. We all know the Kodak company became so famous that people started putting out their various wonderful sites, which were really nice places, that this is a Kodak moment. This spot is a Kodak moment. Why did Kodak become so important and so accepting by everyone around? Because they took the concept of this big plate as in the camera and giant camera, and every time the halogen bulb would burst, and that's how they were catching pictures. Kodak came up with the concept that you have a magnetic film and you put it in the camera and you just click, 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 shutter opens, captures the image, moves to the next level, and so forth. Now everything became very easy. People said, wow, we don't have to hire a photographer and do this. We can easily buy a small camera, have the reels from Kodak, and we can do this. Kodak immediately rose to great heights. Then came digital cameras. They don't need any reel. You can directly get the shutters and capture those images and keep them as digital format. When this idea came out, the new next generation of Kodak CEOs and directors, they said, no, no, no. We have millions of reels sitting in our warehouse. What would happen to them? We cannot go digital. Now, the same reason why the Kodak became famous was the reason because they were not progressive thinking became the cause of their downfall. Sometimes these kind of things happen when we see that the leaders, sometimes so-called leaders, take on the steps which are not progressive. Srila Prabhupada, he provided instructions, guidance, and constant coaching to his young disciples. Many of them were just in their 20s, not even 30-year-olds. And he gave them sannyas because he saw the enthusiasm, the sincerity, the determination. And he would ignite that fire so that the movement was spreading all around the globe. Now, current times, we see many such personalities. Yet at the same time, they are not encouraged to the same level. Rather, that sometimes the tendency is like, only if we say such a person is a leader becomes the leader. So now, the leaders are deciding who can become the leader. That's exactly the way Kodak was thinking, that we will determine how the market will run based on our particular example. And so the mercy is getting diverted. And we are seeing other sampradayas taking on the example from Srila Prabhupada of progressive thinking, and sometimes many of these leaders from other sampradayas, which is bona fide sampradayas, they are in their 20s and 30s, but they have following of millions. Now, people say, why do they have followings of millions and in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, such a following is not there? Because somewhere something went haywire. Look at the example of Kodak. I think we are repeating the history here. So we have to be very, very careful. Instead of focusing on becoming Brahmana, we should focus on becoming a Vaishnava, because becoming a Vaishnava in service of the Lordship to carry out the duties enables us to get the mercy. And what does that mercy mean? Mercy means first we have to get the mercy, the blessings of a Mahatma. And that is by following the instructions. Another aspect I would like to share is King Rahuguna did not become attached still to the deer. He understood that that attachment is there. In this regard, His Holiness Bhakti Tirth Maharaj, once he was giving a class and he said, what are the impediments in your devotional life? And then many people were giving out various reasons. Oh, if these devotees, would listen to us and carry out their duties, then it would be very nice for our devotional life. What if that Mataji, she just doesn't run the stuff and, takes a back seat, then it would become very easy. Oh, if I made the leader, it would become very nice for me to run. They were giving various reasons. There was a young brahmachari sitting right in front. He said, there's no impediment in devotional service. At that time, His Holiness Bhakti Tirth Maharaj, he got up from the Vyasasana, took out his garland and garlanded that young brahmachari. He immediately said, yes, there is no impediment in devotional service. All the reasons we are giving are just born of Maya, material energy. We should carry out the instructions of personalities we have taken shelter, our mentors, our coaches, and take it to our heart. If we don't take it to our heart, we don't carry it out, then of course we are the ones to be blamed, not them. They have shown us the right path. We have to be progressive in our way moving forward. So we have to look at from that particular perspective. Now there is another example. Jar Bharat became attached to deer. Now we actually had a German Shepherd in our home. We cared for this German Shepherd. The German Shepherd got tumor. We still cared for the German Shepherd. We, at the last moment, when the German Shepherd was having extreme pneumonia, was in very painful, literally bleeding to death, at that time, we just chanted Hare Krishna Mahamantra around her. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And Devi is still very much attached. She, being a woman, she starts crying, which is very much understood because women have this mamta aspect. This is like a daughter, right? So this soul was a great soul. And now in Padma Purana it's revealed that who is this King Rahugana? In the previous birth, he was actually the deer whom Jar Bharat, who was previously Bharat Maharaj, became attached. So that also connection is given in other Puranas. And now the deer is getting delivered by Jar Bharat in this birth. So we have to understand things with proper perspective. So being very clear on the Siddhantas, we stayed very much attached from the perspective that this is a great soul. Maybe the soul committed a silly mistake in their past life and has received the body of a dog. Now in this life, we should make it an easy journey back home. So we were all chanting, and she was fully happy as she, departed from this world. And Devi even dreamt that she is with Krishna and playing around with cows, because in her last time she was hearing Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now, how do we know that this was a great soul? Because every time we were chanting around, she would come and sit very attentively. Every time I was playing Kirtan, she would come and sit very close to me. Sometimes leaning on Devi, sometimes leaning on me, sometimes Govind when he's playing Mridanga, coming close to him. And she would sit like a devotee. She would not be disturbing. She would not. One thing we was very much amazed is she would not bark. She was very gentle soul, always smiling. And we could see her behavior. Every time there was aarti going on, no matter where she is in the house, she would come and sit down in this room where aarti is being performed all the way till the end. And as soon as Narasimha Deva aarti finishes, she will start jumping happily. Now it's playtime. So we understood, yes, you did your part. Now let's do our part. And we would take her out to give her the exercise. The dogs, they need exercise to go out and run a lot to exhaust their energy. We did it without attachment, understanding this example from Maharaj Bharat, who is not just a great transcendentalist, but he is now delivering King Rahugana. So today we covered this verse from the aspect of mercy. Mercy means mercy of the Mahatmas, getting mercy of the Mahatmas, because that's where our spiritual life actually begins. And that mercy, of course, sometimes people say it all starts with faith, but faith also comes from Mahat Seva. So again, when we do unknowingly some kripa, when we do service to the Mahatmas, or we get some blessing of Mahatmas. So that's where mercy is. M is for mercy. We must let the ego go, because this ego is keeping us bound in this material world. And anything that's bound and keeping us bound in the material world is not good for us, pratikula to our devotional service. So the realization is blocked by pride, while humility opens the door to grace. And R is to receive the dust, association and service of the devotee. So the dust means genuine association, not gossiping association. Sometimes people have, spiritual master just for fashion. Srila Prabhupada, when he was asked, because he was approached by Mukund Maharaj, and Mukund Maharaj is encouraged by other God brothers to ask Srila Prabhupada that after Srila Prabhupada leaves the planet, who will take his place as the spiritual master? Srila Prabhupada said, he actually had tears in his eyes. He said, my spiritual master, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, was a great spiritual master. And that was a very clear indication to Mukund Maharaj that Srila Prabhupada made it very clear that we should never be looking to replace our spiritual master. But then we have so-called disciples. They go on and their spiritual master have left the planet, and they find it difficult to follow the instruction of the spiritual master, follow what is needed to do right, and they seek for another spiritual master. And then if that spiritual master leaves, then they seek for another spiritual master, because it is more like a fashion to them. They are always seeking, not realizing that actually a spiritual master is eternal. He's transcendental to this material world. And his instructions, when we do seva, we can do seva, vapu seva, vani seva. Vapu seva is serving his physical body. Vani seva is following his instructions, carrying out his instructions. That is greater, much greater than vapu seva. So they forget that they have to carry out the instructions, and so they miss out on mercy aspect. And so we have to receive the dust, means we have to understand the genuine instruction of the spiritual master and touch his heart with our service. And finally, when we carry out this service, to the spiritual master, we hear about stories in Bhagavatam. When we hear stories in Bhagavatam about Lord Krishna, Lord Rishabhdev, and so forth, about the Lordship and his various incarnations, all the devotees become blissful. And when we hear about the glories of devotees of the Lord, like Maharaj Bharat, Jad Bharat, Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruv Maharaj, and so forth, then Lord becomes very happy. So that's where he starts cleansing our heart. So we are performing an internal abhisheka of the Supreme Lord in our heart. So the real dust is humility and love that purify our inner consciousness. And finally, Y is for yearning for grace. We should never give up hope. We should hope against hope. So when we long sincerely for mercy, Krishna reveals himself to us. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So this was the focus today. And as we are sharing gems from Srimadbhagavatam, and take to the shelter. And this is Kartik Mass. Every single chant has thousands of times effect. And we carry out this service. Again, we are all doing Damodar Ashtakam every day and so forth. Hare Krishna. Gantra Srimadbhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Devi, would you like to add anything?
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. You covered actually very nicely the how to achieve the mercy of Sri Sri Radha Shyam Sundarji in this holy month of Kartik. And so in this sacred month of Kartik, even a small service to pure devotee draws Radha Krishna's boundless mercy. And we see from example of Jad Bharat, the teaching is that true realization awakens in our heart only by service to the pure devotee of the Lord, which is represented by dust of the devotee's feet, and not just, performing some austerities by ourselves. So, glories of this Kartik month teach us how a power of such mercy is magnified, making our heart a lamp, of course, with Srimati Radharani's mercy for Krishna's love to shine. We hope everyone benefited from this class, and it's time. We are a few minutes beyond the time. So you may wrap up the class.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Devi. And thank you, wonderful devotees, that you have been with us today in this month of Kartik, where we are all sharing the gems from Srimadbhagavatam and seeking mercy of Shri Radha Krishna. Gantra Srimadbhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhagavad ki jai, Anant Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Om Tat Sat. Have a wonderful week in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.